Stacey Murphy here. Let's talk about creating your own reality and the observer effect. First, why it matters. So, if you know that you are creating your own reality, you may know a little bit about quantum physics, that you are a multidimensional being of light, and that photons of light, all of them, the ones that make up your body, that when they are traveling from point A to point B, which is essentially what you're doing when you're creating your reality, is you are here and you want to experience more of something else. So that's there. And so particles of light, when they're traveling from A to B, they can do lots of wonky things. They are superimposed in the field, and they can be both in both places. They can be in neither places. They can be in one place or the other, and they can be all four of those things simultaneously. And so with quantum physics, what determines the position, the superimposition, and how it gets collapsed down into that place is how it's measured, and that's called the observer effect, that you choose how to observe it and then it behaves like that behavior. So you decide it's a particle, it behaves like a particle. You decide it's a wave, it behaves like a wave. And so with you and your reality, since you are the observer in a lot of ways, how are you observing when you are here in this experience and you want to experience more of something else over there? So what you may know is that there is a focusing mechanism, which is choosing the frequency, choosing your state of being, choosing the place from a frequency, and it has to come from the heart, and it has to be authentic. If it's inauthentic, it is going to be noise. It's not the true signal. You will always go to the true signal of the frequency. So if you want to be happy but you're secretly angry, you're going to go in angry. But if you are authentic and you can get yourself to the place where you are authentically joyful, happy, content, satisfied, honored, feeling blessed, then you will go into that experience. Now, the tricky business here is that most people, when they're thinking about where they are here and then where they want to be there, and it's just an experience of what they want more of, oftentimes they'll get attached to the way it looks. And so if you're attached to the way that it has to look, it's going to be tricky to get there because it's only one location. However, if you want to feel blessed, there are many ways to feel blessed. If you want to feel content, there are many ways to feel content. If you want to feel loved and appreciated, there's many ways to feel loved and appreciated. So what's interesting about the observer effect, now we're looping back around. So you're creating your own reality, and the way you're doing that is through frequency, through your heart. Now, observer, oftentimes we make it mean what we see with our eyes, and that's why we get confused, because, hey, Stacey, I saw in a vision that I was going to be a #1 New York Times bestseller of this book called whatever. And the way I felt was joy when I saw that. Well, what's interesting is that you may get to that place at whatever time and place that is of that New York Times bestseller, but that frequency of joy could bring you lots of different places. And so the observer effect is not what it looks like, but how it feels. And so this is an energetic place of action, this world. It requires you to choose the frequency that you desire. And that is the observer effect in action, is choosing the way you would like to feel, not what it would look like. So you're not observing with your eyes and saying, I have it or I don't have it. That's not observer effect. Observer effect is, I see this thing, this experience that I am enjoying the experience of, and it elicits a frequency from me, a feeling from me. And that frequency now is my North Star in a lot of ways to experiencing more of that frequency. And when I arrive over there, what I believe to be over there is going to look very different from what I was imagining, because it's nonlinear, it's non-local, it's non-logical. It can be everything everywhere all at once. It can be none of it all at once. Quantum physics is illogical. So the observer effect is something that people sometimes use to prove that they are where they want to be by what's around them, or to not prove and say, see, I don't have what I want. See, I'm not experiencing what I want. But perhaps you're experiencing the exact joy you want, just not in the way that you imagined. So the observer effect in action, in life, of people living their life and creating their realities. If you're to think of yourself like an experiment in a quantum physics lab, your observer effect is the ability to focus on the frequency that you are eliciting and saying, I would like more of that experience, and I'm observing that frequency throughout my day, and I'm following that frequency throughout my day. That is the observer effect that will lead you to the there that you're really looking for, that your soul is eliciting out of you by showing you an image that may or may not be what it looks like. So seeing is not believing. And the observer effect, it has nothing to do with your eyes. It has everything to do with your heart.